Have you ever felt like you were just a small part of a much bigger story? That's exactly where our story begins, not with a king in a grand palace, but with a young shepherd boy named David, out in the fields, probably humming a tune while watching his father's sheep. Now at this time, Israel had a king. His name was Saul, and Saul was the kind of guy who looked the part. He was tall, handsome, a real leader. He was chosen by God to be the very first king of Israel, and things started off great. He won battles, united the people, and it seemed like everything was going perfectly. But here's the thing about power. It can change you. Slowly but surely, Saul started to forget who put him on the throne. He began to rely on his own judgment instead of listening to God. He'd make small compromises, tiny acts of disobedience that seemed harmless at first, but they started to add up. It was like a slow leak in a tire. Eventually, the prophet Samuel had to deliver some heartbreaking news to Saul. Because he had turned away from God, the kingdom would be taken from him and given to someone else. Someone God described as a man after his own heart. So while King Saul is struggling with his choices and a growing sense of insecurity, God sends Samuel on a secret mission to a small town called Bethlehem. He's looking for the next king. Samuel gets to the house of a man named Jesse and sees his sons. They're all strong. Impressive-looking guys. He sees the oldest and thinks, this has to be him. But God tells him something incredible. Don't look at his appearance or his height. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. One by one, all 7 of Jesse's sons pass by, but none of them are the one. Samuel is confused. Are these all the sons you have? He asks. Jesse hesitates and says, well, they're still the youngest. He's out watching the sheep. And that's when David is called in. He's just a boy, fresh from the fields, probably not what anyone expected. But as soon as Samuel sees him, God says he is the one. Right there, in his own home, David is quietly anointed as the future king of Israel. It was a private moment, a secret promise of what was to come. David didn't suddenly get a crown or a throne. He just went back to his sheep, but now he carried a divine secret in his heart. Soon after, a shadow falls over King Saul, a dark, troubling spirit begins to torment him, leaving him filled with anxiety and fear. His advisors suggest that music might soothe him, and guess who they hear about? A talented young man from Bethlehem who plays the harp beautifully. So David, the shepherd boy, is brought to the royal court. Whenever the king was distressed, David would play his harp, and the music would bring peace to Saul's troubled soul. It's a strange picture, isn't it? The current king, tormented and fading, being soothed by the secret future king, who has no idea of the complicated journey ahead. Of course, we all know what happens next. The giant Goliath challenges the entire army of Israel, and no one dares to fight him. But David, delivering food to his brothers on the battlefield, hears the giant's taunts and is outraged. He can't believe no one is standing up for God's honor. While King Saul and his soldiers are paralyzed by fear, David, filled with faith, volunteers. Saul looks at this young boy and scoffs, offering him his own royal armor. But it's too big, too clumsy. David sets it aside and walks out to face the giant with what he knows best, his shepherdess staff, a sling, and 5 smooth stones from a stream. You know how this part ends. With 1 stone and unshakable faith, David defeats the giant, and everything changes. Overnight, David becomes a national hero. The people sing songs about him. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. And this is where the story takes a dark turn. That little seed of jealousy in Saul's heart sprouts into a raging obsession. He sees David not as a loyal servant who saved the nation, but as a rival, a threat to his throne. The same man whose music once soothed him now becomes the target of his paranoid rage. Twice, while David was playing the harp, Saul hurled a spear at him, trying to pin him to the wall. It is a terrifying image of how jealousy can twist a person into something they were never meant to be. What followed for David was years on the run. He had to leave his home, his fame, and his friendship with Saul's own son, Jonathan, to live as a fugitive in the wilderness. He hid in caves, forests, and foreign lands, with Saul and his army constantly hunting him. It must have been so confusing. He was anointed to be king. Yeah, he was living like a wanted criminal. But it was in this wilderness, in these moments of desperation and loneliness, that David's heart was truly forged. He wrote many of the Psalms during this time, pouring out his fears, his trust, and his unwavering hope in God. Twice, David had the perfect opportunity to end his suffering. He found Saul vulnerable and asleep, completely at his mercy. His men urged him, "This is it. God has delivered your enemy into your hands." But David refused. He secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe one time and took a spear and water jug another, just to prove he had been there. He would not harm the man God had first anointed as king. This act of incredible restraint showed the true character of a man after God's own heart. He trusted God's timing and God's justice above his own, eventually. Saul's tragic story comes to an end on the battlefield, not at David's hand, but in a fight against Israel's enemies, when David hears the news of Saul's death. He doesn't celebrate. He weeps, he mourns the fall of the king, the tragic hero who started so well but lost his way. The story of David and Saul is more than just an ancient tale. It's a powerful story about two hearts. One, a king who had everything but let pride and jealousy corrupt him. The other, a shepherd boy who faced giants and spears and years of injustice, but never lost his trust in God. It reminds us that God doesn't look at our status or our strength, but at the condition of our heart. It teaches us about patience, forgiveness, and the quiet strength of trusting in a plan that's bigger than our own. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more stories like this. See you next time.